Conference of Mayors Verizon Roundtable Series. I'm Andy Serwer, Editor-in-Chief of Yahoo Finance, a division of Verizon Media. Our weekly roundtable series called A National Discussion on Achieving an American Breakthrough continues. We'll speak with key mayors and CEOs engaged in dialogue on some of the biggest challenges facing American cities today. The topic today is eliminating poverty. Let me now bring in Hans Vestberg, CEO and Chairman of Verizon, for opening remarks.
Thank you, Andy, and to all the mayors attending this. Great to be back for the fourth week. We're doing this co-hosting together with the U.S. Conference of Mayors. As you remind some of you, the first week we talked about the economic recovery. Second week we talked about the dismantling racism. Last week we talked about health equity and the COVID-19. And as Andy well said, today we're going to talk about eliminating poverty. This conversation has been so rich and so important to really bring all the voices to some of the largest challenges we have. And no difference from other weeks, we have a great panel of experts and that will discuss this topic. We have Mayor Bill Peduta of Pittsburgh, Mayor Michael Tubbs of Stockton, Mayor Michelle de la Isla of Topeka, and then from the private sector we have Carmen DeCibio, which is a global chairman and CEO of E&Y. He has not joined yet, but I guess he will be here in a second. And finally, we have Hugh Evans, which is a co-founder and CEO of Global Citizen. So I can promise it's going to be a great discussion. Let me just make a couple of introductions how I see this topic. I mean, first of all, we have said it every week we have been on this webinar. We are having multiple crises and they are hitting the citizens of this country. There's everything from the pandemic, the economical downturn, to the racial injustice. And across the country, we're of course seeing inequalities just increasing because of the digital divide and everything is happening with the pandemic and the economic downturn. From the private sector, I think that we've seen more and more engagement to include society as one of the stakeholders in everything you're doing, and no difference for Verizon. We have the four stakeholders that we are putting up all our targets around. We have our shareholders, we have our employees, we have our customers, and we have our society. Okay. So that's sort of important for us when it comes to engaging. And let me then talk about what we're doing in society, which is directed at this area. We think, of course, that in times like this, when the infrastructure, when it comes to digitalization is important, we have doubled down to see that we are actually helping the human prosperity and put up a target for 2030 to actually target 10 million people to be included in our efforts, and also prepare 500,000 youth to actually come out in the workplace with the new skills that is needed for technology. We do that through something called Verizon Innovative Learning. We launched that some 4 or 5 years ago, and it's actually directed to Title I schools which are underserved. We give them broadband, we give them the devices, we also give them a STEM curriculum. We have done that for some 264 schools so far. We have invested $500 million. And yet again, it's not philanthropy. It's a work with the public school system and Verizon. This is part of our strategy. We want as many as possible, of course, being trained for the next generation's jobs, which is in technology. And so it's also part of our strategy. And then, of course, having the youth and especially females being interested in STEM education and the technology is of essence. That's just one of the things we're doing. But I think that we find more and more of this in the private sector, where you try to find this between the public sector and the private sector. And ultimately, we are engaging also our employees. We have an ambition of 2.5 million volunteer hours the next couple of years, and they can volunteer for projects that are sort of connected to the ambitions we have in the society. So that means they can work with these schools, they can maintain the equipment, or they can go there and do different type of lectures on technology, especially as 5G is coming out. So all in all, how I see how we can help to bridge this gap and eliminate poverty is, of course, bringing people back to the workplace and be prepared for the future. And that's how we are investing in it. But I guess there are many other ideas what we can do, and I'm here to listen as usual. So I would like to hand it over to my co-host, Tom Cochran, to say a couple of words before we kick this discussion off. Tom.
Thank you so much, Hans, and we welcome all of you to our session today, which is focusing on eliminating poverty. And ask the question, what is poverty in America? And it's when you don't have enough money to pay for your basic living expenses. It's unfortunate but true, but we are the richest nation in the world with 328.2 million people, and yet, contrasted with other nations, we have 10.5% people in America that are living in poverty. And of course, making matters worse is COVID-19. It's caused many people to lose their jobs. Congress approved relief earlier, but that money has run out. And this very moment, we're working to push Congress and the administration together to come up with a new stimulus bill, and we have some optimism that a final package will come. This is happening, and it continues to make it more difficult for people to pay their bills. Listen at this statistics. In a recent report, the Census Bureau Household Pulse Survey, it reported that 32%, that's almost 1/3 of adults in the last 7 days, they find it difficult to cover expenses like food, rent, mortgage, car payments, medical expenses, and student loans, of course. And this rate was even higher, Hans, with children, where it was 40% compared to 27% for households without children. So our cities are committed to do our best to make sure that all residents have, good paying jobs. The Conference of Mayors was formed in 1932, and let me say I was not here when it was formed. I feel like I was because I continue to remember it was the Great Depression. It was all about jobs and bringing people back to work. And then we formed the War on Poverty, and I worked there with Sergeant Shriver when he said we would eradicate poverty in 1976. But here we are, boys and girls, 2020, and people are still hurting in this country. I am so proud of the way that the mayors, without very little help from the federal government, unfortunately, are stepping up. Michael Tubbs, many of you saw the documentary on what he's doing there in California with the universal basic income. And so when the government is not helping us, and the central government, the federal government is not helping us, what are we doing? You know what we're doing? We're working with you, the private sector at the local level, doing the best they can to make it happen. We've also been very much involved in increasing the minimum wage. We saluted Walmart when they stepped up to do it, and we have continued that campaign. So we're going to continue to do this, continue to make it right for those people that are living in poverty, and we appreciate so much Verizon for helping us with this series, and especially today to eliminate poverty for those people that are hurting so bad in our nation. Thank you, and I'll turn it back over to Hans.
Thank you, Tom, and let's us now run and get all the great discussions from the great panelists. I'll leave it to you, Andy, to do that.
Thank you, Tom, as well. So before we begin, I want to encourage all the mayors that have joined the webinar to submit their questions located on the right-hand side of their screens. Only the mayors who are participating can questions. Today's event is also being live streamed on Verizon and the USCM's LinkedIn pages, so please go ahead and share this. So let's begin talking to our panelists. We have some great mayors, but I'd like to first ask a question of one of our private sector guests, and that is Carmine DeCivio. And Carmine, it's great to see you again. How are you doing?
Great to see you, Andy. Sorry, I had a little problem getting in, but I think, can you all hear me?
We got you loud and clear. We got you loud and clear. We know it was an airplane. It was a technology thing, and you're getting it going. So glad you're joining us, Carmine. I guess the first question to you is kind of an obvious one, which is, what role can the private sector really play here in boosting economic mobility? And how do you turn that into action and really hold business accountable?
Yeah, so thanks, Andy. And Hans said a lot of this up front, and Tom did as well. But I think it's really important that the public sector and the private sector work together at the local levels. And we at EY have been involved with many cities around the country around really the idea of upskilling, and Hans mentioned it. But there's so many places now. And at EY, we have 300,000 employees around the world. And, over time, we've made it very, very difficult for people to just join. We required, 4-year college degrees. We required master's degrees come in to do a lot of different jobs. What we're finding, Andy, is that in today's world, in the world of technology, there are many jobs where you don't need a 4-year college degree, or you don't need a master's or a PhD. You really need to be very functional in whatever the technology is. So in several cities around the country, we've been partnering with other companies as well, and Hans and Verizon's part of this, and many other companies are part of it. But really partnering with the public sector in that city to really promote upskilling and to promote people getting technical expertise in technology. A lot of places it's an 18-month program or 2-year program, where then from there, and working with typically the local community college or any college in the city, and then from there we commit to hiring these people right on board, as well as other companies. And so we're doing this in New York, we're doing it in Virginia, we're doing it in many cities around, and I think it's a great way to really get people jobs and get people in the workforce at well-paying jobs is the other issue. So this public-private, and I think Tom mentioned it before, working together, there's so many things we can do, and we at EY have been doing that in different cities around the country. We have great offices in a couple of the cities that are represented here today, but we need to do more. And today, people running big companies, they all understand that we're all in this for all our stakeholders, not just our shareholders. And it's something that many of us signed up for at the BRT and the definition of a corporation. And we're really making this come alive now, whether it's on, things like this or things on metrics and things on sustainability. So I think the time is right to do more of this. And I encourage, all the mayors on the phone to make sure that you are working with the private sector. Many of these cities all have business groups and so forth, because I think in general, private sector is more open to doing this than ever before.
Thanks, Carmine. So the mayor's going to be calling you up. Email.
Yeah. Well, I think we're doing some things in Pittsburgh already with Mayor Peduto.
Well, give him an opening there, Mayor Peduto. You heard that. And want to go to the mayors now, but I want to start with Mayor Tubbs though, and the reason I want to start with him is because I think that poverty from firsthand experience, at least according to your Wikipedia page, that if it's accurate, which I certainly hope it is, it says that you were born in South Stockton and grew up in poverty. And so I want to ask you, if this firsthand perspective gives you a different way of looking at this problem or understanding it.
Yeah, well, that's weird. That's on Wikipedia, so thank you for that, Andy. and Carmine, I'm looking forward. I'm looking forward to having EY in the city of Stockton. But Andy, absolutely, I think it's one thing to have studied poverty at Stanford, but I learned so much more from living it and seeing how the folks I grew up with, the folks in my neighborhood, my own mother, weren't struggling because they were lazy, weren't struggling because they didn't want to work, but were struggling because structurally the fundamentals of the economy were off. I remember my mom working 2 jobs or working overtime every weekend. I remember my mom having to go to check cashing places because when bills were due and her checks were due were different. We were living paycheck to paycheck, and there weren't a lot of banking options in our community. And I also remember the dignity of all the folks I grew up with. And I know since I've become mayor, I've been adamant about the fact that we have to reframe this conversation of poverty from one where the folks who are in poverty have deficits to the fact that the wider structure in terms of wages, in terms of protections, in terms of childcare, in terms of an income floor, which is why the basic income work we're doing in Stockton is so important, are actually the deficits. And that as a community, we have to realize that poverty is a result of policy choices and not individual choices or moral failings. And I think now, with this, COVID-19 has made that so clear. When you have people who can't work because of this pandemic, they're told to stay home for 2 weeks, but they don't have sick time off. You have people who are working, exposing themselves to this virus and still can't make ends meet. And I think this is the perfect time to have this conversation with kind of leaders of industry and leaders of cities, because that's where the solutions will have to come from, in collaboration with each other.
Thank you, Mayor. I want to go over to Mayor de la Isla of Topeka. And maybe you don't, when you think of poverty, you don't think of Topeka, but I'm sure there are people, citizens in your city who are in need. And so I'd like to understand the situation there, and then also what you're doing to address those needs.
Thank you very much. It's great to be here. I can tell you that one of the moments of biggest pride that we have in this community is that working in partnership with our Greater Topeka Partnership, we have changed the way that we do our economic development strategy. The city of Topeka has embarked on a project called Momentum 2022. It's our strategic plan that talks about how we are going to ensure that everybody in our community understands that there's opportunity and how to find it. Some of the pretty interesting things that we've done, for example, is we've been able to position a technical school right in the middle of one of our most economically challenged neighborhoods. The other thing that we're doing is eliminating barriers to transportation to good paying jobs. Topeka has a diversity of jobs. We are very highly dependent on hospitals, are a big thing. Of course, we're the capital of the state, so there's a lot of state jobs. But in addition, we have a large amount of industrial jobs. Target Distribution Center is here. Walmart Distribution Center will be here very soon. Mars M&Ms, the caramel M&Ms that everybody loves, are made right here in Topeka. Well, those jobs that are paying over $15 an hour are relegated to two very different sectors. Either it's South Topeka or way out in North Topeka. And our public transportation system, with a community of 127,000 people, is not as robust to keep a line running 24 hours a day. So many of the individuals, when you start in these companies, they're third shift jobs. That's a big problem. So we were able to use our economic development dollars to ensure that citizens in our community are able to get to work for $5 an hour per trip, because we're subsidizing that with economic development. Poverty is everywhere. And I think that we have to understand, I think Michael said it very clearly. Poverty in many, many cases is a policy issue. And I'm excited that our Greater Topeka Partnership has taken a stand in partnership with the city and the county so that we could have these conversations and figure out how to eliminate barriers.
M&Ms, who knew, right? Okay, I want to go over to Hugh and talk about Hugh Evans and talk about Global Citizen. Global Citizen has as its mission ending extreme poverty by 2030. Hugh, how has the pandemic impacted progress towards achieving this goal, and have you had any shift any priority areas?
Well, thank you very much, Andy, and thank you for the opportunity to be part of today's conversation. I'm happy to be here because I've been working with Hans Vestberg for the last 10 years with his long-term passion to see an end to extreme poverty. And I think that I know that Mayor Michael Tubbs put it extremely well when he said that poverty is really a function of systemic underpinnings. And I think that COVID-19 has really exacerbated that and exposed the intersectionality between global poverty and poverty here in the United States. To give you one example, at the end of last year, we were working at Global Citizen on a huge campaign to encourage the world to finally step up to achieve the United Nations 17 Sustainable Development Goals. And this campaign was working to mobilize $350 billion in financing annually to achieve that great goal. Then, obviously, COVID-19 came, and as you can see from the most recent Gates Foundation Goalkeepers report, the world has lost 25 years of progress in the last 25 weeks. And we're seeing a reversal of progress towards goals to the impact of the pandemic. In fact, the World Bank now estimates that 150 million people are going to be pushed back into extreme poverty. That's less than $1.90 per day as a result of COVID-19. So in response to COVID-19, we had to change our plans immediately. Back in April, we received a phone call from Dr. Tedros, who's the head of the World Health Organization, and he asked Global Citizen to mobilize our millions of members around the world to put on a television special alongside Lady Gaga, the World Health Organization. It was called One World Together at Home, and it was broadcast on all of the networks across the US simultaneously. And it ended up raising $127 million to provide personal protective equipment to frontline community health workers. But we knew that that alone is not going to end the scourge of the pandemic. It's simply going to provide support for the frontline workers. So immediately after that, we started working with the president of the European Commission, President von der Leyen, and encouraged the G7 nations to all contribute money to actually develop a vaccine to end COVID. And we successfully, through our next special in partnership with The Rock and other prominent leaders, raised $1.5 billion in new financing. But as we look towards the future now, with hope that a vaccine could be available commercially by summer of next year and to frontline community health workers by the end of this year, really next year we're going to be campaigning on what we're calling the 5-point recovery plan to help the world recover better together. And that's really addressing the most urgent needs of the world post-COVID. We believe they are firstly ending COVID, so getting COVID-19 testing, treatments, and vaccines to everyone on the planet, addressing the hunger crisis here in the United States and also across the Horn of Africa, getting the 1.5 billion children who are currently out of school and don't have access to distance learning, getting them back into education. Also addressing the environmental crisis that we're seeing in Northern California, exemplified in the bushfires, and also addressing the challenges of equality that we're seeing, both racial and gender equality, that are currently being exacerbated by the pandemic. And so our first and foremost and most urgent focus is obviously on ending the pandemic. So we're going to do everything we can once a vaccine is available to raise further funding to make sure that this will be distributed to every nation on this planet, because there's no way we're going to end the disease until every nation has it equitably, because otherwise, we won't be able to resume international travel and commerce and the things that fuel the economy so that people can get back to work. So that's really the heart of our pivot and our focus right now.
Thanks, Hugh. Over to Mayor Peduto. And I guess I was remiss when I was talking, first of all, to Mayor Tubbs and didn't talk about the guaranteed income plan that he founded. But Mayor Peduto, I know you're participating in that program, so I'll ask you about it. And then Mayor Tubbs, I'll come back around and get you to talk about it as well. But Mayor Peduto, I'm curious as to why you decided to get into this program, and how much autonomy does the city of Pittsburgh have when it comes to this program?
Well, thank you, and it's great to be with my colleagues. We had the opportunity through the U.S. Conference of Mayors to head a special committee that looked at this issue of eliminating poverty. The issue that on a guaranteed basic income, an issue that I personally followed since Mayor Tubbs announced that he was creating a pilot program 2 years ago, is based upon that very notion of autonomy. It is based on the idea that the people who have need understand what that need is better than government. That we provide a number of programs in order to combat poverty, but the programs are tailored to specific programs or specific products, many times not helping to break a cycle of poverty, simply to help somebody to survive through poverty. Many times a person will know where their greatest liability is, and it may be where they find themselves in life, whether they have children or they're taking care of an older adult, or they're in a situation where the rent is increased faster than their paycheck. And having that ability to be flexible with financial assistance can help somebody to prioritize their own life and to be able to provide an opportunity that may have not been there before, whether that is the opportunity to apply for a new job or the opportunity to fix a major appliance in their home, or maybe to save in order to buy a vehicle. All of these things through a guaranteed basic income become the reality of how having a program that is basically open, respects the individual more than a specific government program.
Let me drill down a little bit more because I'm curious about this point that it's connected to existing programs. Can you give an example of how that would work if you're dispersing funds and monies directly to people, how that's connected to existing programs you already have?
Well, some existing programs that we have provide food assistance, but food may not be the criteria or the greatest detriment in having somebody break the cycle of poverty for their family. So even though they're able to get the food assistance, having their child in an early learning program will help that child to be able to get into kindergarten and start equal with their fellow classmates. Or in the case of Oakland, California, Mayor Schaaf will tell you that with one of her constituents, it was a washing machine. But we don't have federal programs that provide washing machines to individuals. By having that washing machine, the person was able to maintain a job in which they had to wear a uniform, in which they were able to clean the uniform much more efficiently and then be able to move upwards within that career. The idea of that also being supplemental to any rent assistance or any food assistance helps to create a more holistic approach to helping individuals to help themselves.
Love that washing machine example. That's spot on, brings it home. Hans, over to you. We hear a lot about wealth inequality, income inequality, but of course there's also a digital divide in this country that's reflective and emblematic of those other divides. What can Verizon do, particularly with the rollout of 5G perhaps, to address that divide?
I think the silver lining in this pandemic has been actually that technology has leapfrogged, and we have seen uses of remote healthcare, remote learning, which of course is a far better and efficient way to deliver that everybody, wherever you're born or wherever you are getting the access to critical services. However, if you can access it, then the inequality is increasing. And that's, of course, a concern. And I worked for the last 15 years across the globe to see that the 21st century's infrastructure is mobility, broadband, and cloud, because that means that regardless where you're born or where you are, if you have those, you can actually get the same opportunity where you are. We still have that challenge here in the US, and I try to divide them into three buckets. One is accessibility of broadband. There are still pockets where broadband is not good enough to have residential broadband. I think that we are rolling out broadband as crazy, both wireless and wireline, and we're now doing 5G home, which is a totally new way of delivering. The other is, of course, affordability. To see that you can afford that, because it's also affordability in some cases. And finally, which I find most common sometimes, is the usability, that you have actually access to applications that are societal supportive. Let's say e-learning that is good enough, or healthcare that is technology driven, etc., and having applications on it. Those three to work together. And if you understand who is owning these three, there is actually a public-private work that has to be done here. I mean, I think that the broadband is predominantly the private sector rolling it out. The affordability, of course, can be a discussion when it comes to public places and all of that, together with many of the mayors here, which I do a great job on it. Then, of course, when it comes to the applications, I think there is more to do together to see that we have applications that are geared for the digital divide. And we still have more to do. And as I said, I mean, we have invested $500 million in the Verizon Innovative Learning for those 264 schools, and we are continuing. I know it's a small piece of all the schools in the nation, but if we all find that together with the public-private, I think we actually can bridge the divide. And it's more urgent than ever as we are in this situation, because the lifeline for many to have work, to connect with friends, or just being updated what's happening around them, that actually to be connected. So I think this is more urgent than ever to bring the economy back, to see that everybody has a fair chance.
Great. Mayor de la Isla, is there a way to take advantage of this crisis in a way sort of that Hans was saying here, say by educating individuals that are being displaced work and reskilling them for jobs in the future through making investments in?
Absolutely. I think that the opportunity that we are missing right now is the opportunity to work with the private sector and the public sector and start figuring out what are these jobs, the STEM jobs, the jobs that are in demand, and making use of individuals that have been displaced from their jobs, so that then we are able not only to provide them the ability to be at home, but also incentivize them to get an education, so that once we are able to restart our economy, we are able then to start getting people into the workplace in a much better position. And I feel like as a country right now, because we're focusing on the global things, we are doing what I often like to say, we're missing out on the opportunity that this crisis is bringing us. We were taking a look at recently at the spend that was brought aboard by the stimulus checks and the effect that the PPP had on us being able to save jobs. And when I was looking at that, I was thinking, wait a second, if we could work with municipalities and counties and start understanding what the local ecosystem is, and then partner with the state so that we have extended unemployment benefits, but also educational benefits for people, it would be a game changer. We would be able to come back into our communities with so much strength. And I think that this is something that we as mayors and as leaders in our community and the private sector should be working in our communities, so that we can start changing the ability for families that are in poverty to change their earning capacity so that they can start moving up.
Awesome. Mayor Tubbs, I apologize to you as a sidebar there, but I'm going to do it again. I'm sorry, I should start off and asking you about your program. So talk to us about this idea that you had that has really gotten magnified by other mayors across the country right now.
Yeah, well, I think Mayor Perduno did a great job explaining it, so no need to apologize. But essentially, the notion is that in a country as great as our country, that creates so much wealth and has so much, there's actually not a real excuse or even a valid justification for the amount of lack members of our community have. And that through providing an income floor, you could do, as Dr. King said, abolish poverty by a mechanism that's the most direct. And what we've seen in Stockton over the past 2 years in giving folks $500 a month, no strings attached, is that you can trust people with money. People spend money the way you and I spend money. Oftentimes that money goes to food, to utilities, to maintenance, to things like washing machines. One of my favorite stories is from a gentleman, Tomas, who talked about how the $500 in the first month was enough for him to go to an interview. And I said, why would you pay $500 to go to an interview? And he said, no, Mayor, I work in a job that doesn't provide paid time off. So the $500 allowed me to take time off from my work to apply for this better job, which I received. So I think it's stories like that that make it so important. And this year with COVID-19 really exposing, as everyone has mentioned, particularly just how the economy just hasn't been working for the majority of Americans, particularly working Americans. And then also couple that with kind of the protests around the murder of George Floyd, came a real inflection point in a moment, I think, for a lot of local leaders to think about sort of how do we actually get to the root cause of a lot of these issues, and understanding that poverty, that lack, that economic scarcity doesn't serve our cities well, and that there are solutions out there, including a guaranteed income. So we started a group called Mayors for Guaranteed Income, which is about 25 mayors strong. Just yesterday, the mayor of Compton announced They'll be doing a pilot with 800 Compton residents. The mayor of St. Paul, Minnesota, announced 3 weeks ago doing something similar. All understanding that particularly in this moment, that's a golden opportunity, as Mayor de la Isla said, to really do something that's going to improve on the existing social safety net and bring our country and our society into the 21st century.
Excellent. Carmine, I want to go over to you and ask you a little bit about specifically which businesses, which industries hold the most promise in terms of being able to connect to the public sector here to address some of these problems. I mean, are there some unlikely industries, or is it maybe just what you think it would be?
Hans mentioned technology, and technology is something that I do think is a net benefit for the poor going forward, for sure. And we mentioned in terms of broadband and affordability, but it's also the use of technology. We find in a lot of places, in a lot of cities that we're in, poor people don't know how to use technology. And maybe kids do, but the parents don't. And so the use of technology is going to be important, and that sector is going to be important in terms of upskilling our people, for sure. I do think some of the more manufacturing sectors that are going to change a lot also have opportunities, but they're going to be blended with technology and knowledge of the particular industry and manufacturing and supply chain. So, the quick answer, Andy, is it's probably the ones that are doing well today, that continue to do well, that have done well in COVID. But it's going to be led by technology as we go forward.
Great. Let me remind the mayors who are on the call that they can submit questions and we will get to them. So please send them in. Hugh, over to you. The 5-point recovery plan that Global Citizen is putting forth, you wouldn't think necessarily that the United States would be a country where Global Citizen would focus its efforts, given that we're the richest country in the world by some measures. But is that the case? Are you focusing on the U.S. and how?
Well, absolutely, Andy. I think we have to focus on the U.S. because COVID has exacerbated existing inequalities around the world, including here in the United States. And we all know that 8 million Americans have already been pushed into poverty since the relief ended in May. To give you a couple of quick examples of how this applies to the United States, if you take, firstly, access to a vaccine when it's available, there's a significant amount of work that needs to be done to build confidence domestically for a vaccine, because some polls are suggesting that only 41% of Americans say that they'll get a COVID-19 vaccine, which is well below the 60 or 70% that public health experts think will be needed to achieve herd immunity. And so building confidence in local communities starts with mayoral leadership. On issues of hunger, we know that a recent study showed that 1.5 million New Yorkers, for example, can't afford food. And so we have to address the issue of the hunger crisis, not just globally, but here in the US. And when Hans spoke earlier about the power of technology to bridge the divide, I agree with him wholeheartedly. And we know that with 1 in 3 households that have an average income of less than $50,000 lacking internet access, we know that remote learning during the pandemic for children out of school has become a privilege for those who can afford it. And so I think, Hans talked a lot about affordability and usability, and that's a direct application of the issues that relate to extreme poverty in the developing world also applying here in the United States. And so I think as we look further afield, I'd love to partner with mayors to pilot programs that can be best in class here in the US and then have global application. But I'd also think, I think that 2 things that were said earlier, I think what Tom Cochran said about the important need to get the next stimulus bill passed, I couldn't agree more. I think that I know it's currently being negotiated by Speaker Pelosi and Treasury Secretary Mnuchin. But I think it's critically important that we push that because that's going to have a huge impact both domestically and globally. And then I would also say, finally, that it's important for us to advocate for the wealthiest of our citizens who live in our cities to give while they live. I think there's a cultural opportunity to change philanthropy here in the US, because we know, and we've done a recent piece of work with Forbes analyzing the giving of of America's wealthiest 400 individuals. And we know that of the 633 billionaires in the United States, only 10 of them are giving in any meaningful way. And so I think there's an opportunity to really encourage greater philanthropic contributions. I know that philanthropy will never be a long-term solution when we need to address these issues systemically, but maybe it could be used to continually finance Mayor Michael Tubbs' minimum wage guarantee, for example, and pilot that more broadly through philanthropic investment. And that's where I think the application of tackling global poverty relates right here to the United States.
Right. Thank you, Hugh. Going over to Mayor Peduto, a two-part question. First of all, jumping off what Hugh was saying, stimulus. Is that something the citizens of Pittsburgh can count on? What's your take on that? And then secondly, can the 5-0 Pittsburgh Steelers beat the Tennessee Titans on Sunday?
Without Devin Bush, be tricky. Let me start with that first question, and just to play off a little bit of what Hugh had said and what Carmine had said as well. There is a critical role of the corporate community right now to being able to work with cities on new initiatives in order to be able to lessen disparity. In Pittsburgh, we did a gender equity report a year ago working with the University of Pittsburgh, and what we found wasn't surprising, that there's disparity between men and women in the city of Pittsburgh. And we added race to it. It became exponentially worse. And we found that Pittsburgh provides less of an opportunity for a young Black woman than almost any other city. That they're better leaving Pittsburgh than trying to succeed. And that's unacceptable. So as we start looking at where those disparities exist in access to healthcare, in access to quality education, housing, transportation, we now are looking for partners from our corporate and philanthropic and institution community in order to be able to create programs to be able to help. So you look at an issue such as being a woman being able to carry and to be able to provide a healthy childbirth. And then you look at it upon racial lines, and all throughout this country, you see that same disparity. So our foundation community, together with one of our hospitals, have begun working on programming in order to provide services and education to the women who need it the most. And I think that critical partnership right now, as Carmine said, people are looking for those types of opportunities. We talk about guaranteed basic income. For the most part, cities cannot use our budget. We can't take part of the taxes and then give it to certain individuals. It's not legal, at least not in the state of Pennsylvania. So we need the corporate givers, we need the philanthropic community and others to be able to provide the funding, and we'll create the administration of the program. And we can use our cities as democratic laboratories in providing for a better society if we can have the partners who will be able to stand next to us. As far as the Steelers, the next 3 weeks are the big 3 weeks, as we say, in Pittsburgh, and anything's possible.
Yeah, then you also have, you're the critical swing state in the election coming up. So no pressure.
We are the Keystone State, literally, in 2020. And like I said, anything is possible.
Right, right. We have a question I'd like to get to here, and this comes from Mayor Ana Ziad. I hope I'm saying that right. The mayor of North the mayor of North Lauderdale, Florida. Yeah, that's correct. North Lauderdale, Florida. She says here, and this is for you mayors, okay? Recently, a neighboring city brought forward a cost of living proposition, which I found interesting. They reached out to MIT to have them run numbers to see what would be the right cost of living rate for their staff to live within their own city. Has anyone done anything similar? Yes, go ahead, Michelle.
So recently, one of the things that I have been trying to push here in the city of Topeka is an affordable housing trust fund. I am a person that wholeheartedly believes that in order for us I overcame homelessness, and my life changed when I was able to have a steady place to be with my kid. And I've seen it over and over play out. Housing first, always, always. And we had a housing study so that we could start talking about how we would create that mechanism, fund that mechanism, and what we needed in regards to housing stock at all levels. And we discovered that it takes $16.32 in order for you to have a decent life in the city of Topeka, which is why when people start talking about a minimum wage being raised to 15, I kind of like do my typical raise the brow, because I think that we should be a little bit more progressive than that. We should take a look at what the MSAs are saying with area median incomes. We should take a look at what's happening locally and then index it, because it's the only way that we can ensure what a livable wage is in every community. And that way, when you index it, you don't have to have the conversation. But yes, absolutely, we did that, and I am excited that now we have a core number that we can refer back to from that housing study that we did.
Thank you, Mayor de la Isla, and I'm sorry if I was overly familiar there by calling you Michelle. I apologize for that.
I prefer if you would call me Michelle, by the way. I'm not married to titles. Could I ask for a privilege to add something else?
Sure.
The prior discussion that we were talking about, the importance of the private sector, because municipalities are not able to, our budgets are based on tax dollars that come from our residents. And of course, we all understand how important that is. But I think that the one thing that we are not talking enough about, that is obvious that the corporations that are here are already doing, is working with your corporation so that there is a true corporate social responsibility strategy. I think that if we were to discuss in partnership, corporations have this massive ability to work directly with local governments of where their employees live and have true conversations with their mayors, understand what the issues are, and then rather than having a corporate social responsibility strategy that only works to give grants to things that make us feel good, to really start becoming participants and really changing the tide. And I think that the more corporations start talking about corporate social responsibility and start including others, we can truly see a lot of those changes that Mayor Tubbs and Mayor Peduto are talking about. But it's going to take more than just a few big companies to do this. I would like for other corporations that are looking at this panel to start considering the impact that they could have in their communities and really starting to change some needles with regards to poverty and quality of life, if only they collaborated with their local leaders.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. Hans, are you seeing other companies step up? You talk to other CEOs. Are they sitting back or are they moving forward here?
I can look over almost a cycle of 15 years working as a sort of an executive level and CEO. I've seen a dramatic change of how public and private sector are coming together, and private companies understand what exactly the mayor of de la Isla said, that we understand that we need to work locally. We need to work where we have our employees, where we have our customers. We need to reflect our customer base. So yeah, and we need to find areas that is attached to our strategy. And that's why when I talk about digital divide, climate change, or human prosperity, that's what is key to Verizon strategy. And then it's not felt like a philanthropy. It's part of our strategy. And ultimately, that means if it's part of a strategy, I will not cut it in bad times. It's going to be part of a strategy. Philanthropy usually goes out the door the first thing to do. I love philanthropy. We should do it. But for a corporation, it has to be embedded in a strategy. So I've seen a great improvement in cooperation. Can we do more? Yes, we can. And I think that finding the ways that the mayor as here are talking about how you work locally, of course you need to work on federal level and state level, but ultimately the work that is happening where the employees and the customers are on the municipality level, and that's where we need to be. And of course, being a company like us that have employees in every municipality of this country and have a store in every municipality of this country, it becomes even more important. So I can only agree. And we are encouraging, and I'm part of the BRT that came out with 4 stakeholders, that we all should be part of society. So I think it's happening, and we just need to find those bridges in between us over time right now to make solutions, because it's not one side that's going to fix all the challenges we have right now. We probably have more challenges on this earth than we have ever had before, and it has to be a duality between the public and private.
Hey, Andy, if I could jump in.
Yes, please.
To Mayor de la Isla's comment and to Hans, and this also starts with, the mayors on this panel are fine, but some of this also starts with attracting and retaining companies in their cities. And there are many cities today where that's not a priority. And we see many companies, many of our clients moving out of these cities and moving to different cities where they feel more welcome. They feel like they can do more in the community. So it is a two-way street here. And the more companies feel welcome, feel like there's a real incentive and so forth to be in a particular city, the more this is going to work. And this is almost a divide now with mayors in cities that are welcoming that and mayors in cities that are not.
Great. All right. Well, we're going to have to wrap things up on that note. There's just been a lot of terrific ideas that have been expressed here. And I guess we're going to get a few more from Tom Cochran right now. Tom, let me toss it over to you to kind of wrap things up before we go to Hans.
Just to thank you, Verizon, once more, and to let everyone know that I believe that wherever we're going in America, we have got to. I remember when Mayor Daley became Mayor Daley too. I worked for both of them. Been here a long time. I remember when Mayor Daley came into my headquarters at the conference. Mayor sneezes, "Where's the business community? Where's the business community?" And so I just want to really talk a little bit and appreciate. Sometimes business gets a bad rap. We get bad raps too at the local level. But every time I turn around, I see the business, small business and big business working together. Just yesterday, we had a webinar on the whole question with the National Restaurant Association on what the hell are we going to do with restaurants as the weather changes and people, and so we discussed that. So, at every time we can, Andy, we reach out to the business community at every aspect to show that together we've got to keep going to get us through this incredible economic hardship and health challenges that we must have. Again, once more, thank you, Verizon. Thank you, Hans, for stepping up at this incredible time in our history. We appreciate it very much.
Hans, over to you.
Thank you. And thank you, Tom, and for co-hosting this webinar so that we've had 4 of them right now. I would also like to thank the mayors on these panels and listening in to this webinar, and of course, Carmine and you for coming in with their reflection of the situation. As I usually say when this webinar is over, it's impossible for me to summarize and draw a conclusion on such a rich discussion that we have today. I think that the word that I found in this discussion is we need to recover better together. I mean, we hear that, and I think that if there's something I want to send to everyone, recover better together. We want to get to the new normal, to a better normal, and that work is now, and it's not when all these challenges are over. And I can definitely see that in the conversation we've had the last couple of weeks here, that there's an intent from all the mayors and the public sector and the private sector we're bringing together. So by that, I can only say we're convening a week from now again on our last webinar, and we're looking forward to that. And then I will be here for sure, and Tom as well, and we're probably going to have a couple of new members of the panel. So once again, thank you very much, everyone, and thank you, Andy.
Thank you, Hans. See you next week. We'll be discussing achieving public safety and justice for all. Thank you for participating, everyone.
Thank you.